Hey everybody, this is Sheriff Tim Carter, the Shenandoah County Sheriff, and thanks for joining us today. We've taken a little break from doing podcasts. We hadn't had a lot of content, but we've got some things that we want to talk about. In particular, we want to talk a little bit about school safety. I had some questions from some parents in Shenandoah County that were, there's been some activity throughout the country regarding school safety and things like that, and had a couple parents that wanted to ask a few questions of us. So today I've got Whitney Malk here. She's the current supervisor of our school resource officer folks here in Shenandoah County, and with me on the podcast also is Brandi Sheetz. Brandi is a Shenandoah County resident and a mom, and Elizabeth Estep. And Elizabeth also is a Shenandoah County resident and a mother. And they wanted to talk a little bit about school safety. So that's where we're going to go, okay? So thanks, everybody, for being on today. And with that, then I think we'll go ahead and start with you, Brandi, if you want to start us off here.
Great. Thank you for having us on this podcast. Elizabeth and I were having lots of good conversation about the current events. And so we were curious what you and the Sheriff's Office were some of the things that you all were doing now regarding school safety.
Okay. Well, one of the things we have here in our county is that we have a full-time Shenandoah County staff member, a deputy sheriff assigned to each county public school. We have 10 public schools in Shenandoah County, so we have 10 school resource officers or SROs. That's one thing we've done here. Now that happened, quite frankly, it happened right after the incident in the northeastern part of the country, the Sandy Hook incident, if you all remember that. We had some community forums. We had community forum in the northern part of the county, the central part of the county, and the southern part of the county. And two of the things that the parents spoke the most of with regard to those public safety forums, school safety forums, were having a law enforcement officer assigned to each school and controlled access to schools, to the public schools. So that's how that came about, having those full-time staff members assigned. Another thing we did, now this was actually right after Columbine, this would have been in the late 90s. We created what we call crisis pre-plans for each law enforcement officer in the county. Those pre-plans are used by all the towns, the Virginia State Police, the Shenandoah County Sheriff's Office. They are updated annually. We use input from the school systems, from those various agencies, as well as some of our other emergency responders. So we have crisis pre-plans, and that's what we call them. We train on active shooter training response. We do that multiple times a year, and we do that with different, like the school resource officers do that, but we also do that with our patrol staff. We also do that with our investigative staff. I know the Virginia State Police do that type of training. I know towns also participate with us and do that type of training themselves. So we train on active shooter response. There is an annual threat assessment that's done. A lot of people probably don't know this, but the Shenandoah County Public Schools, they do an annual threat assessment each year. And we're involved with that threat assessment. And by that I mean it talks about the response to a threat, improvements to the physical plant, and by that I mean doors and windows and access to the building. Talks about policy and training issues that need to be addressed throughout the course of the year. But that's done actually every year, and the Shenandoah County Sheriff's Office is involved in that process with the Shenandoah County Public School System. We've provided some training to, local school staff, also on active shooter training and crisis response. We've done that periodically with school staff. I know that we've also participated in, like the state has different trainings. Whitney, I know the Department of Criminal Justice Services has trainings that we attend, and the school system also has these.
Yeah, we go to the SRO conference. It's the Virginia School and Campus Safety Forum. every summer. SROs go to that, and this past year we actually had some administrators from the school system attend as well.
Mm-hmm. And we also provide some enhanced ballistic protection to our school resource officers. So there's like additional equipment that they have access to. And it's my understanding we try as time permits to get them all through basic tactical certification.
Mm-hmm.
So we do that as well. Those are just some of the things that we're doing, Brandi, that we do now. So it's a process. It's something that we work on every year, and something that we're always trying to improve on.
It sounds like it. I appreciate that. That's a great explanation of the things that you're doing and the seriousness that you and your department and the SROs take on these issues. So I appreciate that.
Thank you. How about you, Elizabeth? Do you have any question for us?
Yeah, so that sounds like a lot of things that you guys are doing, a lot of things that I didn't even know about. So that brings some insight to me on that. So with the things that you mentioned, there's definitely steps in place, but what are some things that we can do to improve the safety of our schools?
Well, one thing you'll hear us talk about is we talk about hardening the target, if you will. And when I talk about controlled access, that's one of the things that you can do to harden the target. It's my understanding that the school system, they're working on that. I think they still got a little bit more work to do. I'm looking at Whitney when I say that, by the way. So you have to, the community, the school system has to decide at some point what improvements, what changes are you going to make to the facility to make it more difficult for a person to have access to the facility that shouldn't be there. So we try to harden the target. So that's something that I think we need to continually work on here in Shenandoah County. There's been like this, I know our staff go through every day, for example, and they do security checks of the schools. Okay, when I say our staff, the school resource officers, making sure, and I think they do a pretty good job at this, quite frankly. I think Shenandoah County Public Schools does do a pretty good job at this, making sure doors that are supposed to be locked stay locked, doors that are supposed to be closed stay closed and are not propped open, and just being vigilant with regard to, having access to the building. I know one of the things that the school system, we just had a briefing, I guess it was about a week ago, and one of the things the schools are looking at is they have like a limited card key access system in some of the schools at this point, but I think my understanding, they're trying to enhance that and broaden that.
Right.
And I think that's important, Elizabeth. I think making sure that your camera systems are operative, making sure that they've got good quality, security on the doors, door alarms and things like that, or enhancements for windows, window locks and things like that. I think all those things are critical. And
right.
I don't think you can just buy all this stuff at one time. I think it is a process where you have to kind of, go through the list and go, okay, this year we're going to work on this particular aspect and get it right. Next year we're going to improve this and that kind of thing. But that's all part of hardening the target. Another thing that we did this year, we requested an additional school resource officer. Now, it was actually a supervisor position that we asked for. And I got to tell you guys, if you run a business, you understand that people get sick. You understand that people have childcare issues. You understand that there's things that come up in a person's life that's working in your business. School resource officers, same thing. I mean, they get sick from time to time. Their spouses have, illnesses or something like that. Their kids have illnesses, things like that. They have to go to court. So from time to time, there are these vacancies within our system that we have of coverage. And Whitney does a decent job. I think Whitney tries to either, if it's not her, it's a town police officer or someone from our regular patrol who tries to cover the school at the time where we have an absence. But we feel like we need to have an additional person because it taxes your time, quite frankly. So we actually asked for an additional school resource officer this year. They have this thing called, I don't want to get too far down in the weeds, but basically you look at scheduling and you can actually tell, based on a person's use of sick leave and vacation. And my guys actually we try not to take any vacation leave or any leave like that during the school year.
Right.
But sick leave and training and things that are required, they have to go to or have to be off. So you can actually sit down and kind of sort of figure out how much of these vacancies you're going to have in the course of a year. And we figured out that we could have a person working full time filling in those times. So we've actually done that analysis. So that's something that I think you can do to improve our public schools now, and just keeping vigilant and keeping just constant improvement, trying to make things better.
Thank you so much for that information.
Sure. Thank you.
So you asked for a new school resource officer position.
Right.
I think you said it was at a supervisory level.
Yes, ma'am.
In the budget.
Right.
And we're currently in the budget season.
Right.
So how does that process work? And obviously you did some data digging and you justified that you could keep, I guess what we call a floater or a fill-in in different schools.
Right.
How does that process work?
Well, the budget process in Shenandoah County, I'll kind of walk, it's going to be a little dry, but I'm going to walk you through this, okay? Basically what my command staff do is they come together in that September to October timeframe, and we sit down and look at where do we have gaps in services and what do we think our priorities should be going into the budget request and the budget process cycle. So we meet in September and October and we go over these things, and this was a particular position that was identified. Now, probably late October, early November, the county will put out it's like a notice, if you will. Hey, here's your budget packet. We need it by a certain day, and they send that to us. But we've already kind of sort of done the pre-planning prior to that. So then we get the county paperwork, and we sit down and kind of refine what our justifications are, what our needs are, and we put it all together, and everything's turned in. Actually, it's usually turned in the week before Christmas because I don't want to have to be dealing with it over Christmas break, quite frankly. But anyway, we put that in with the county. The county gets it. And then we hear back from the county. When I say the county, I'm talking about the county administration, that office, county administrator and his senior staff. We hear back from them usually about, late January, early February. And I have what's called a budget meeting with the county administrator and his senior staff. And we go in, and quite frankly, we go in with these priorities. These are the positions we've asked for. If there's some technological thing that we're trying to address, if, the price of gas is going through the roof and we've seen that that's, off the hook and we need to be asking for more funds to pay for the gasoline that we're using, we kind of walk the senior staff at the county administration through what those priorities are and what our needs are, what we think the needs are of the community. So that's how that happens. Now, from that point, I meet with the Board of Supervisors. So about, I think this year was, I can't remember, early March or maybe late February. I can't remember. It was in that time frame I meet with the Shenandoah County Board of Supervisors. Now, when I meet with the Board of Supervisors, the county administrator has taken all the department budgets and decided, this is probably a question you would have to ask him, but he decides, or she decides, what the county's priorities should be. The SRO position was removed from the county administrator's budget. Now, I don't know whether the Board of Supervisors know that information or not. I'm not really sure whether they do or they don't. But I go into my board meeting, and I don't know if you guys follow the Shenandoah County Sheriff's Office much, but this year's budget meeting wasn't much of a budget meeting. And I'm not trying to complain. All I'm saying is it was not a budget meeting. What you would expect, what you guys would expect is you would expect me to walk into the front of the governing body, and the governing body asking me questions about my request, and me answering those questions, and then they would say, "Hey, we think this is a priority. We don't think this is a priority," or whatever it is. They would tell you kind of. They may not exactly decide on the exact amount or the exact number of positions you're getting, but at least they would let you know what they think about your request. That didn't happen this year, but that's a whole nother podcast, guys. Okay, and I don't expect y'all to be on that, but my point is that didn't happen this year. What happened was I had one board member that kind of basically monopolized the meeting, and we didn't really talk about my budget hardly at all. But the SRO position wasn't discussed. We didn't get any input from the Board of Supervisors, and quite frankly, I don't even know if they know that the position was in there. I'll be blunt with you. I don't know. But anyway, then they make a decision based on those departments meeting with them what the county budget should be. That's the point from your all's perspective that okay, you're going to hire 2 firefighters, or you're going to have a school resource officer position. You would know as citizens of the county what is decided on if any changes are made from the previous year. If you're going to add positions or get rid of positions or what have you, you'd have that information because the board then would set that budget. At this point, they haven't finalized their budget, but I will say that at this point they haven't talked too much about the school resource officer position. But that's kind of where that's at with regard to that request.
So, other than the obvious, you've already stated why you were requesting this. But what are other reasons that you feel like you need this new position?
Well, Whitney probably won't say this. She knows this, and I'll say this for her. Whitney's part of the senior staff here within the sheriff's office, and when you're in an agency of our size, senior staff get a lot of, they get a lot of hats to wear, okay? There's a lot of things that I have to ask them to do in addition to what they technically are supposed to be spending most of their time on. Like, for example, even though Whitney's supervising these 10 people, on paper, she's also managing our senior citizen program. She's managing my community outreach program with Neighborhood Watches. So that's taking, when you're talking about just the Neighborhood Watch program in and of itself, you're talking about 10 active Neighborhood Watch groups, which means 10 nightly meetings per month. So her time is being pulled to do those things. So in my mind, I need the person to basically not just assist her with the supervision of SROs, but actually cover time. I don't know, Whitney, if you got any more to add on that or not.
Yeah, no, he's right. It's a lot with the 10 Neighborhood Watch groups, and we have 3 triad events, which is the senior citizens, also on the Board of Response, Family Youth Initiative, the list goes on. And I think at this day and time, the SROs definitely need another person there to be with them day to day. That supervisory role comes with checking their reports and making sure that all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed. And, in this day and age, you have to do that. And same thing with training, just making sure that they're up to date on all of that and just being physically present with them at a school building and helping them through their day-to-day stuff. I think that that's much needed.
Right. I was just telling a family member recently, in the light of everything that's happened, that I don't think a school should ever be without a resource officer. There are definitely times when they need to be gone. And if the budget wasn't an issue, I think there should be at least 2 people there at all times, and the school doesn't go without one. But I know that's not feasible.
Right.
So.
Yeah, I remember, guys. I remember when we had 1 per campus. I remember when we didn't have any, and but with all the things that go on in the country, even with things that we've had here happen in Shenandoah County or surrounding jurisdictions, I'm like you. I think it's what is the school shooting average time? About 90 seconds.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
You need to have somebody there. Needs to be someone there.
Absolutely.
And we're a firm believer in that, and we cover it as best as we can. And we would love to have had this conversation with the Board of Supervisors. I'm just thankful I'm having it with you all. But but this is what you all would expect, I think, for department heads, fire chief, sheriff, to have this kind of a conversation with the Board of Supervisors, but it didn't happen. So I'm just glad we're having it today.
I was just talking with a couple teachers that are at Central and some of the staff, and they were saying that there's really not a lot of downtime for a school resource officer during the day. You'd be surprised the things that they deal with and take care of, and how busy they are. And there isn't a day that goes by that the school staff and admin don't need the school resource officer for something. And there's a fine line between what they can take care of and what the admin's taking care of at the schools. But I feel strongly that we will never regret having a school resource officer at our schools during the school day. That's something that we'll never regret having. And we hope that nothing ever happens at one of our schools. But the best way to make sure that we are being proactive as much as we can is to keep an SRO on the campus and have this extra position so they can fill in when life happens and people need to go do things and take care of their own kids and their own life.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right. I agree.
So are there any other things that we as parents and in our community can be doing to make our school safety improvements happen? Obviously, we missed being at the budget meeting in person, and it was such a interesting budget meeting when you were presenting. It sounds like, and the paper captured it. But,
yeah, they got every word in there, I think.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you, the biggest thing that you can do, a lot of people think that I'm just a parent, I'm just a regular citizen. No, the Board of Supervisors, the sheriff of the county, your elected officials, we answer to you. So what I would suggest if people have questions is that they talk with their Board of Supervisors member. They ask them what their position is with regard to the county's priorities. What value do you place in this request that's been made? And get them to tell you on the record. If they think what they have is sufficient, then they should tell you that what they have is sufficient. If they tell you that we have a different priority, they should tell you what that different priority is. But you should, they answer to you, and they ought to flat out tell you what the answer is. The other thing is I would talk with my school board member, and then the school board members don't set the budget, but they do have some influence over the Board of Supervisors with regard to what those priorities are, because the Board of Supervisors funds the school board budget. So if a school board member, I would talk with my school board member and let them know, hey, where are we on the improvements to controlled access? Where are we on some of these improvements that Sheriff Carter has talked with us about? And what's their position on staffing? Do they think that should be a priority for the county? That's what guys, that's really what it boils down to. Getting the elected official to basically take a position and tell you where they're at with a particular position, and then you can decide whether or not that's in line with what your values are, or where you think your priority should be. But I would do that. That would be my suggestion to parents. Talk with the Board of Supervisors member, talk with school board members, and find out where they're at on school safety, and B, what are their priorities. So that'd be what I would do. And it's still not too late. I don't think it's too late to they haven't actually set the budget yet. So I don't think it's too late to actually get them as in the Board of Supervisors to actually see if they can find this as a priority to what they've done to this point.
Well, I hope that the parents listening to this will take action and email and call and
Sure.
remind their board of supervisors and members and the school board officers that these are things that we want. We do want this in our community, and I know people are busy, and I know they're living their lives and just, trying to do what they do, but this is where we take action, and we can reach out and ask for these things and ask for an explanation
Sure.
to try and get a better understanding of this, because it definitely isn't the budget meeting that you wanted, and if most people knew about it, they would agree.
Right. Well, guys, I don't have anything. I think we've kind of gone over most of our stuff. Whitney, am I missing anything?
I don't think so.
Okay. Brandi, Elizabeth, anything more from you guys?
No, just thank you so much. This has been so informative for me. There's lots of things that I did not realize that the resource officers do, and I knew that there was training that was involved, but just all that detailed information was very important, and it's very crucial for the safety of our kids and our schools and our teachers and our community. So just thank you so much for all that you do.
Thank you, guys. Well, listen, Brandi and Elizabeth, you're always welcome here on the podcast with me. If you ever come up with some other issue you want to talk about, we're always available, okay? So thanks so much for spending a little bit of time with me today.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. Take care.
Yes. All right, everyone. Thanks for being with us today. This is the Shenandoah County Sheriff, Tim Carter. Thanks for joining me today on The Source. You can find this and all of our other podcasts on my YouTube channel. That's at Timothy Carter. And while you're there, make sure you click on that subscribe button for show updates and notifications of new shows. And please go ahead and smash that like button. Again, thanks again. This is Tim Carter at The Source. Have a great day.